If you're a new agent and you need to go from zero to getting that first paycheck as fast as humanly possible, you're going to want to bookmark this video today because we're going to go into some action steps you can start right now to shorten up that time as much as possible. What's happening? I'm J.C Agajanian, broker associate with the Whissel Realty Group. And today we're discussing things somebody new in the business can do now to get that first deal under contract and closed as soon as possible so that they can stay in the business and continue learning and growing instead of falling out for having too many months go by before that first paycheck comes in. And it's going to be no surprise that the first piece of advice is to just get out and do the hard work. There are so many different things that people want to do, specifically surrounding social media, which is not all bad. There's actually a lot of good stuff you can do, but that's not going to be where you're going to find your business right away. It will help you more long term. For the most part, we're talking about face-to-face or even over the phone, live communication. Conversations is what needs to take place. Before we get into those conversations, we're going to back up and just cover 4 broad topics that ought to be your focus as a new agent in the business. First of all, lead gen. You need to be always generating leads. It is going to be the thing that never ends in this business, but it's also going to be the thing that supplies you with a great income in this business. Coaching, education, and admin are the other 3 components that round out the big 4 that you should really spend your time focusing on. You need to be learning all the time. You need to understand that there is admin work in this business that will zap your time. It is not going to produce the income, but is going to be required once you have some business going on. And even before you have deals going on, there's just admin stuff that you have to take care about. And the coaching is going to help you with motivation and mindset, in addition to straight up understanding and adding skills. So coaching and education kind of go hand in hand together there. But really what we're talking about for someone new in the business, unless you are coming in with a great nest egg, the ideal scenario when we talk to new agents is to help them understand that in the best case, you're going to have at least 3 months supply of reserves on hand so you can pay rent or mortgage, whatever you have. You can pay for all the other bills you've got for a minimum of 3 months without stressing yourself out about getting up and running in the business. But we understand most people don't come into the business with 3 months of reserves. But if you have that plus some, if you've got, some windfall of some sort and you're just transitioning anyways, then you don't necessarily have to rely on that sweat equity side of the equation. And maybe you can use some of the check equity, but in the case, for someone who's new in the business, even if you have that nest egg aside there, you're still better off taking your lumps and going through all the things that any other standard agent would do, because it's a learning process. And that's part of learning, is going through the work of figuring things out. And so how do you bootstrap it? How do you start having real estate conversations on your own every day? Well, there's going to be a few, and the first one is pretty obvious. Let's go ahead and start with every single person you already know in the city that you're working in. Like, it only makes sense to start with the people that already know you, that already like you, and have a solid level of trust for you, and just let them know what you're doing. You don't expect everyone you know to all of a sudden transact. They may have a tip for you from a friend who's considering buying, or they may have another property that you didn't know they even owned and are considering letting go of for some other reason. You never know what you're going to run into because you weren't a realtor before. Now you are, and now you're going to have real estate conversations. So start with your personal sphere, get it all into your database, and make sure that they know what you're doing, and actually make the phone calls. Don't text, don't email. You can do those subsequently. But make the phone calls, let them know I've transitioned, I'm part of this fantastic team, or I've joined this great brokerage, or whatever the case may be. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm hoping you can spread the word for me. Who do you know that's considering selling or buying? Where are we going next? Start with your sphere. Out of those people that you do know, figure out who already owns in your city that you're working in, and just start letting them know, hey, I'm going to give you an update every once in a while. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, and I'm going to make sure you know what's going on with the comparable sales in your neighborhood and how that's affecting your home's value. And it's my job to make sure people are aware of what's going on with their home's value. And if anything ever changes or you've got any questions, I'm here to be a resource for you. So that's kind of a great next step for the sphere. Now, what we need to do is move on to what you probably thought I was going to say up front, and that is open houses. If you need a paycheck as soon as possible, you need to do a ton of open houses. You don't need to just do one and hope that something comes together, because of the odds that we are working with, you're probably gonna only convert 1 out of every 10 to 15 leads that comes through an open house. And that's if you have good conversion, meaning you're good over the phone, your follow-up doesn't suck, you're good in front of people face to face. These are all things that aren't naturally given to people new in the business. So you might only convert 1 out of every 20 or 25 or 30 as a new agent. So that means you need to do a lot of open houses, like 4 to 5 per week. It means you also need to start door knocking. You need to start circle dialing. This is what we're talking about when we talk about sweat equity as opposed to check equity. We're talking about putting our boots on and going out and finding the business where it lies, instead of hoping that somehow, some way, it'll fall into our lap. Because you know what? It's just not gonna. Don't have any listings to hold open yourself? Of course you don't. You're a new agent. I know that. So what do? First and foremost, rely on the team that you've surrounded yourself with, whether that is an actual real estate team or just a group of people that happen to be at the same brokerage you are at. Go to your team lead, your sales manager, whoever it is, let them know what you're trying to do, that you're serious about it, and they will facilitate you getting as many of these open houses as humanly possible. If you've got nothing in your office, if you've got nothing in your team, or if you're an independent agent with a large brokerage and you don't really have a lot of interaction, you can just start hammering the phones to other realtors the same way you would when you're trying to prospect for business. Explain to them that you're not going to flake out, that you take it seriously, that you're going to show up early, that you're going to have 20, 30, 40 signs in the neighborhood. You're going to take notes on everybody that comes in, what sort of feedback they've got, and you're going to get back to the agent so they can help their client understand everything that the buyers that came through the property had to say about that property today. And they're going to be better off for having you hold that open house than anybody else in town. You have to really sell yourself, because frankly, most agents would rather not deal with it. They'd rather have someone they know or do it themselves. But if not, they don't want the uncertainty of what could take place with that precious listing they've got. You know, it took them a lot of time and effort to earn that client, to earn their trust, to get the listing signed and now have it live. They're not going to allow someone they don't know jeopardize that for them. So you have to really pitch yourself on a stranger. And that's why we started with talking about relationships we already have within the office. Now, as time moves on, you can work on building these relationships with maybe older agents who aren't really excited about doing open houses anymore, or maybe find those listings that are done by people who don't live in the area. If you've got an out of area agent, they're probably going to be a lot more likely to let you take that listing and hold it open for them. In fact, they're probably going to feel like you're doing them a favor. So now they can report back to their seller and tell them about an open house and all the activity that took place, and they didn't even have to make the drive. Next, we're going to talk about areas of expertise. Now, this isn't necessarily going to get you a deal tomorrow, but you need to really understand what area you want to focus on and just become an expert in that. Like if you are all about expired listings, then find all the best scripts, pick the one you like the best, and know it inside and out, and go out and start dialing those expireds every single day. And that's just one example. No matter what area, maybe it's a geography. Maybe you want to know every single home that sells in a 10-block radius, and you're going to be that micro neighborhood expert for that part of town. That's fine, but time to do your homework and bone up, and so you know everything there is going on. Find a niche that you are personally interested in and become the expert. This means studying, this means learning, this means asking questions, but doing all this will help you become a better agent in a shorter period of time than the average agent who casually picks up information as they go about bumbling through the job year after year. You've got to obsess over your scripts and dialogues. You've got to learn them better than anyone you know in the office. You've got to internalize them. You have got to know what to say and how to say it and when to say it and to whom to say it, so much so that it just feels natural and pours out of you. This is something that no new agent has built in. It's something that every agent has to learn and acquire. This is a sales skill, and learning those scripts enables you to have conversations in a much more personal way. And that sounds counterintuitive, but it's true, because if you already know how to take a conversation from A to Z and not get too sidetracked in between, it allows you to actually pay attention to the personal things that the client is telling you, or maybe the important things about when and where for property, or whatever else may be going on. And you're not just focusing on what was I going to say next, what piece of information did I not get out of them yet. This is internalized now, so you don't have to have those thoughts, and you can actually be present and have a face-to-face conversation while still guiding the conversation in the right direction it needs to go to result in an appointment or some other sort of meeting to move things to the next level. Next, you have got to really quickly become an expert on your buyer's consultation. This is something that some people take a very long time to figure out, but with regular role play, constant study, you can actually get this thing down in short order. And believe me, if you're doing the other things we're talking about, you're going to want to have this down, because you're going to have appointments coming up. And the next step is to get them on board working with you as their agent. And if you don't have a great consultation scheduled, prepared, ready to run through, again, internalized just like the script, so that you know how to present it, maintain eye contact, still make jokes, still listen to things that they're saying about their friends or their family, and actually let it register instead of ignore it because you're so focused on what you're going to present next. Having a solid buyer consult wired is going to help you move from zero to paycheck exponentially faster. And this is something that you can do on your own. You can practice day and night just like these scripts, and you can shorten and shrink down the amount of time it takes to go from not knowing anything about this stuff at all to actually feeling really proficient with your scripts and dialogues and your buyer consultation. Next, you've got to really understand the local market, the neighborhoods that you want to work in, and this means even more homework. I mean, you are truly going back to school. You may have thought it was hard to get through the basic classes that you had to take as a prerequisite to take your state exam. Nonsense. This is the studying that actually matters, right? You want to understand how many homes are there in this area that you're working for? What is the turnover rate? What is the price ranges? What is the average market time? You've got to know all the basic stats in this area inside and out, so that when you do have conversations with maybe a client at a meeting, or maybe a stranger at an open house, or maybe even just someone who stops you when you're putting your signs up and down, you've got to have the ability to explain exactly what's going on at a simple level, like you're teaching it to a grade school kid. If you can do that, you're going to be able to have more high-level conversations with people that are already more educated on the market itself, and you can hold your own with them. Now, the people that aren't so educated, you're actually going to be looked at as the authority, and this is going to give you even more credibility despite how long you've been licensed. Part of knowing the local market is previewing properties as well. And this is actually a pretty great little segue, because previewing properties helps you understand what inventory is on, how long it sits, and you can get a better familiarity with what types of finishes, size of properties, layouts are taking place where you work. Now, the other thing you can use property previews for is to boost your social cred. Now, I told you we're going to talk about social, but not until after a little bit, and that's because you can focus on your social media presence at the same time that you're doing all these other things, but for many, it can be a real distraction. But like anything, if you're going to take your social media seriously and really use it as one of the pillars in your business, you can do that. Just please be aware, it's something that is not going to pay off immediately. This is definitely more of a long-term play, so it doesn't really jive with the topic that we're talking about today, but everybody always wants to talk about social media, so we got to throw it in here, right? If you're going to do it, you got to go and hit it hard, just like I'm talking about with the open houses or the door knocking or the circle dialing or anything else that you're going to do that is more sweat equity to get that paycheck right away, as opposed to the check equity where you're paying for leads and doing things like that. So with the social media, I mean, if you're going to do reels, for example, do 10 of them a day and do that 5 days a week and stay consistent. And before you ratchet that 10 reels per day down, do it for a month. I mean, can you imagine the volume that you're going to do? Now, yeah, that's a lot of work, but we're talking about social media. How hard is it to make some posts on social media? So it's not that hard. Creating the content is going to take exponentially longer than actually editing it down and putting it up for you. But if you're gonna be real about social media, you gotta hit it hard and you gotta make it count, right? So we're not goofing around and making a post here and there and liking something and thinking that's gonna be significant to our business. It's not. You can make social media a significant part of your business, but you've got to take it seriously. And this is what we're talking about. Lots of posts, lots of content, and it's got to be appropriate. You need to appear as a very busy new agent according to everyone who's looking through this social media filter. And if you can't keep that consistent, or if it just seems too much, just scrap it and do the bare minimum and focus on the things that we know are going to generate leads that we've already talked about today. So while it's a great option, overall, I would say social media is more of a supplement to the agent who needs to get paid quickly, as opposed to a core component of what we're doing here. There's lots of things that you can do above and beyond this, and I'd be happy to give you my personal advice if you got specific questions, or if you just want to bounce a few ideas off of me, you can hit me up right here. Feel free to do so. I'd love to chat with you soon.